Hi you guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel and welcome to a really exciting video. We're gonna sit down and talk all about my 2024 financial goals today and reflect on my 2023 financial goals, and I'm honestly really excited. This is my third year doing this video. It's like one of my favorite videos to do of the year, and I just watched my video from last year so I could kind of do a little bit of a reflection on it. Hope you guys are enjoying the 2024 reset series so far. The next video you guys see will hopefully be my prepping for 2024 video, which I started that kind of like series last year where we just did like a big declutter day and got ready for a new year. And there's something about doing it like the week before Christmas. Like all my presents are wrapped and stuff, and there's just like something about doing it right before the holidays that I can like go into the holidays with a clean house, an organized house, and just like feel really ready to take on the new year. And I know it's not for everyone. Obviously everyone does it differently. I said that in my reset for 2024 video, that everyone is going to want to reset at different times, but I have truly found for myself at least that doing it like the week or two before Christmas is really ideal for me. That way the holidays are done and I'm just like ready to go into a new year. And I don't know what it is, but I feel like 2024 is going to be like my year. Like I just feel like it's going to be my year. Okay, 2022, she was okay, not really okay. Like it was a bit of a hot mess year. This year, a bit of a redemption. We got engaged, obviously, and we moved. Like, we had really big milestones, but it just didn't feel like my year, you know? It just kind of felt like we were coasting through a lot of it. So I just have a feeling that 2024 is going to be the year, and I am so excited about it. The first thing I want to talk about is reflecting on our previous year's goals. I think reflection plays a really big part into setting goals, of course, but especially with finance, when a lot of your finance goals are going to come from like the same 5 categories every year. Like, yes, you can set goals about mindset, but it's not like, to me, normal goal setting where you have those, like, you could just set goals about anything. With finance, it really comes down to 5 categories, right? Like, your finance goals are pretty much always going to revolve around debt, saving, investing, budgeting, and income. So you have to get really honest with yourself, and I think that especially with financial goals, you really have got to be able to point out your flaws and find out where you can improve, because it's really easy to put on the rose-colored glasses and just be like, my budgeting skills are great, when they're not, and then how are you going to improve on that goal for next year? And so I think it's really important to, obviously you don't have to put it online, but to be really honest with yourself and go through your budget line by line, and don't skip any items, and don't change or tweak your goals. Like, really be honest about what went well in the past year and what didn't go well, so that you can improve on that in the next year. Because if you set a goal for 2023 and it just didn't work for you, yes, you can set that goal going forward with hopes of it working for you, but it's also okay to totally shift and try something new, right? Like, if your goal for 2023 was to save $20,000 and you saved $4,000, it's really important to kind of talk to yourself and figure out, like, what is the reason I didn't save that extra $16,000? Like, was that too high of a goal, or was I not diligent enough about saving, or did I pull money out of my savings? Like, really get honest with yourself, kind of figure out what went well and what didn't go well. And so that's exactly what we're gonna do right now, except I'm literally putting it on the internet. So let's jump into it. I literally pulled out my video just because I didn't have, like, at this point I'm like wiping the 2023 goals from my existence. So okay, first goal was to save $6,500 into my TFSA, which was to like max it out for this year's contribution. Technically I did this. Technically I saved $10,000 into my TFSA, so technically I can write this goal off, but I had to use all the money from my TFSA to pay my taxes because there was a big mix up in my taxes. Anyways, long story short, I just don't know if I consider that I accomplished this goal, because I did, but the money's not there currently, but it will be once the IRS mails me that check. So I'm not too sure, but I did originally hit this goal, which is good. Next was to save up for a big purchase of $10,000. And my goal with this was to just be comfortable with having money in my savings aside from an emergency fund. And I didn't end up doing this, honestly. We ended up obviously moving, and once again, I'll just need to kind of reflect on like why I didn't accomplish this. And I think it's just because I didn't have a set thing to save up for. I'm really someone who needs like the specific item to save for. Like, I can't just save to save. It just doesn't work in my head. And so because I wasn't like saving for a wedding or saving for XYZ, it didn't, I don't know, I wasn't really motivated to save, honestly. And because we ended up buying cheaper and our mortgage is roughly the same, like we didn't have to put any extra money down on our house. And that's definitely my flaw there, was that I just needed to have a purpose to save. I went into the year thinking like I could just save $10,000 and like use it for some purchase, but I didn't know what that purchase was going to be. Next was to find a good business payout model. I incorporated at the beginning of the year, and I'm on a dividend system because you get taxed a lot lower in Canada if you do it that way, and I just like don't really need to be on payroll because I work a corporate job still, and some months I don't have to really pay myself. I definitely think I did. I was really overshooting at the beginning of the year and paying myself too much, and I just thought I had all this money to spend. And so I actually, it's funny, I just kind of at the end of the year figured out the best payout model for myself, which is going to be, going forward, I'm going to pay myself around $1,750 a month, which after like taxes and deductions about $1,400–1,500. I'm going to split that 3 ways. I'm going to do, which we can talk about this after, but it's not really a goal of mine, so I guess I can talk about it now. I'm going to do 500 in my TFSA, 500 in my RSP, and then 500 in my emergency fund or short-term savings, home savings, whatever you want to call it. So it took me until the end of the year to find a good business payout model, if I'm being quite honest with you guys. But yeah, it's not something that came easy. I feel like it's something that takes a lot of trial and error. Next was keeping up a mindful spending mindset. I definitely think I did this. I have a lot of videos on this if you guys want me to talk about it in detail, but I definitely think that I worked on this a lot throughout the year. Get a raise or promotion at work. I did. I got a raise. It's like hard though, because in the hospital system at least, sorry, this one piece of hair just like really keeps bothering me. In the hospital system at least, you don't really like, it's not like any other corporate setting where you just like get a raise because you tell them, you know, like I did a good job and this is why I should get a raise, etc. It's like, oh, the union bartered and here's your raise. So I got a raise, but it doesn't really ever feel like deserving of it because I didn't have to like fight for it or show or ask for more. Like I think I got a 2% raise. I fought so hard this year to get a raise, you guys. I met with my managers, and that is the one flaw to the healthcare system, I think, is that doing like 4 people's jobs. And I fought so hard to get a raise, but if they gave me a raise, they had to give everyone else a raise in my pay scale. And so I did get a raise, but not the raise I like really wanted. Honestly, it was more of just like a, not even like lifestyle inflation, because I'm pretty sure that inflation in Canada is at like 6% and we all got like a 2% raise. Okay, track expenses and income monthly. I did that because I feel like I hold myself accountable with my budget videos and my resets. Next, I wanted to talk about how to set financial goals, because I think it's so fun to watch these videos and see what other people are doing for their goals, but obviously, you know, I want these videos to be helpful and a resource to you guys. So I wanted to share some tips on like setting financial goals. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I think you could take one of those 5 categories, and that's a really great place to start with setting financial goals. So like budget, income, debt, savings, investments, like, you know, take maybe one from each category, or I don't know, pick 2 or 3 categories and set goals from there. But that's a good way to kind of get the wheels turning. I feel like financial goals specifically can be really overwhelming to set, and I think especially with financial goals and what we see online, it's so easy for us to be all or nothing and just set these like really extreme financial goals. Like, I'm gonna save 50% of my income, and like while that's amazing and great, and I'm sure people do it out there, I think it's so much more important to be sustainable. And I'm going to talk about that in one of my goals this year, that it doesn't need to be all or nothing. It doesn't need to be extreme. I feel like taking baby steps and saving smaller amounts is actually more sustainable long term than saving these like exuberant amounts. So to set goals that are doable for you, not a content creator, like yes, I'm sharing my goals with you guys to maybe help give inspiration, but if I say I want to save $10,000, it doesn't mean you need to save $10,000. You could save 5, you could save 15, you could save 2, like it doesn't really matter, but do what's doable for you, because that's what makes people fall off the financial goal bandwagon, I think, is that we set goals based on what other people are doing and that aren't specific to like our income, our bills, our budget in general. And so we fall off because we're either trying too hard or too little, and we're not doing what's right for our income and finances. So like the 3 types of goal setting for finances. So you got short term, mid-term, and long term. So short term would be kind of like within the year, whether that's like building an emergency fund, buying a high-tech item, going on vacation, saving XYZ in a year. You've got mid-term, which to me is like up to 5 years in terms of goals. And that could be like saving for a down payment, paying off a student loan, paying off credit card debt. And then you have the long-term goals, which are like more than 5 years, which could be like, you know, saving for retirement, paying off your mortgage, stuff like that. Take state of your current finances as well. So maybe doing like a yearly budget spreadsheet, whether you want to make one yourself or get one on Etsy, and just kind of like, I know nowadays most of the budget spreadsheets, like the one I use, has an annual review and then each month, and then auto populates everything into that annual spreadsheet. So it's pretty easy to kind of reflect on the year, but I think that's a really great place to start, as well as to just kind of review your finances for the year. Once again, see what went well, see what didn't, and kind of use that as fuel to create those goals. I talked about this in my resetting for 2024 video, how I start with goal setting sooner rather than later, so that I make sure I'm really setting intentional goals. And that's exactly what I did for my financial goals. So let's jump into the financial goals for 2024. I have 5 of them. It is, but I like the number 5. It just feels like a good number of goals to set, honestly. I really wanted to make sure this year that I was setting goals that weren't just like numeric, like more like mindset and things I have to work on throughout the year. So my first goal is to buy less but buy better. I've talked about this before, but I had a really unhealthy relationship with money in college. I had a lot of credit card debt, a lot of consumer debt. It kind of feeds into like growing up. My parents work really, really hard for everything for us. And so when I started making my own money, I wanted brand name things. I wanted Lululemon. I wanted all these like, not designer, but like brand name items. And I put myself in so much credit card debt because of it. But now I feel like I've taken that different extreme where I'm just like, I want the cheapest option, and the cheapest option just isn't always the best option. And I've talked about this before, but obviously I think it's important to have highs and lows. So categories you want to spend in and categories you don't. But my issue is that like where I want to spend money, I buy like a good quality item, but then where I don't want to spend money, I buy a cheap item that just falls apart and I have to keep replacing. And I need to move more towards that like mid-range item for items that even I'm not interested in spending money on. And I really want to work on my mindset this year of, even if it's something that I don't value spending money on, it's okay to buy something that's going to last me. And that's something I really, really struggle with. Items, or those areas that I don't like spending a lot of money in, to work on saving up for the mid-range item and not the cheapest option. And obviously there are times in life where buying the cheapest item is not going to matter, and there's no like discernible change in value if you buy the cheapest item, like No Name mac and cheese versus Kraft Dinner, or like stuff like that, right? That it just doesn't really matter if I spend, or if I get the cheapest version. Notice that in the last few years, especially with clothing, like if clothing is my biggest weakness with this, I will buy the cheapest version of something, but then I have to replace it in 6 months to a year. So like, why not save up and buy that mid-range or higher range product that's gonna last me longer? I think a good example of this for me is coats and shoes. Those are things that I just don't care to spend money on. However, I have noticed that since our winters get down to minus 30 degrees Celsius, I need a good winter coat. And I was the kind of person that was just buying like whatever was the cheapest winter jacket I could find on sale, but I was buying a new one every year because it wasn't keeping me warm. And so last year I ended up saving up and I bought myself a Super Puff from Aritzia, and it was like the best decision ever because it has kept me so warm, and I know it's like a good quality jacket that's gonna last me years. After buying it, I can look back and I'm really happy that I made that decision. But in the moment, I was like, why am I spending so much money on a jacket? And same with winter boots. And I kind of pick every year one winter item to upgrade, which has worked well for me. So 2 years ago, it was like a good solid pair of winter boots. I have like some Sorels, and then I have the UGG winter boot as well, which is amazing. Last year I got the Super Puff. This year I got some Uggs. I'll probably actually also get, I really need to get a nicer pea coat. Mine's from like, it's a thrift store, but I'm pretty sure it's from like Shein. And so working on slowly upgrading those items and learning to be okay saving up for it. Like, just because I can't get it immediately, like I don't need it immediately, I don't need that instant gratification. I really want to be better about saving up for things, and that was one of my 2024 personal goals, as well as just like quality over quantity in my wardrobe. And I really want to work on that and learn that it's not about price or convenience, but it's about treating everything I own as like the one thing I will ever need, like the one winter jacket, the one winter boot, the one pair of jeans, etc. Like, I really want to work on that mindset, and that's why I want to start this video off with a mindset goal, because it's not always about the numbers. It's really sometimes about the mindset and making that shift in your head. All right, my only numeric money saving investing goal this year is I want to invest $10,000 total. It doesn't matter which account it goes into, but currently, obviously, you guys know I had to drain my TFSA, so that's fun. But my TFSA is currently at $500. I'd like to get this to $5,000, and then my current RSP total is $4,000 because we had to replenish after we bought our first house, because you can use your RSP. So I had finally replenished that after buying the condo 2 years ago, and I'd like to get that to $10,000. So roughly I'd like to invest about $10,000 this year. 2023 was the year I really started investing and realizing that smaller, consistent additions to my investments do best, instead of saying like, I'm gonna invest $1,000 every month. Obviously every month is a little different. I work a part-time corporate job, and like obviously social media income can fluctuate. And so I've realized that adding consistent, smaller contributions to my investments over time is better than just like putting in like $1,000. And so that is my only like numeric, I have other numeric goals, like numeric saving investing number goal, because as you'll see with my next goal, we have so much travel this year. We have so many weddings, we have so many projects we want to do for the house. And I find that when I say I want to save 10,000 and I want to invest 10,000 and I want to beef up my emergency fund, I get very overwhelmed and I just don't know where to put my money. And because I know this year we're going to be spending, like we have home projects we want to do, like we're saving up for those projects. You know, we have 2 weddings in 2 countries in the span of 2 weeks. Like we have a lot of travel we're doing that's not personal this year. And so I know that we're going to be spending money this year on a lot of travel. And so I don't want to set myself up for failure. I also think that's a really good tip too, is really laying out your whole year. I took like a yearly calendar and I basically put anything in it that I knew we wanted to spend money on. So for example, we have a wedding the last weekend of August, then we have a wedding mid-September. So August and September are going to be like high cost months for travel, and then kind of like lining out our home projects for the year. And that really helped as well too, to kind of visualize and see where and what months we'd be spending more money in. So yeah, investing $10,000, that's my only numeric saving investing goal this year, just because I want to be realistic with myself. And I know if I set a goal to like also save $10,000 like in my short-term savings, it's just not gonna happen. I'm constantly gonna be pulling from it to buy a plane ticket, buy a hotel, renovate our kitchen, like all these things. And so I just want to set myself up for success more this year. And I knew going into this year, I wanted to stick with one goal, whether it was saving XYZ or investing XYZ. And because I don't have any debt that I'm trying to pay off, like my student loans are paid off, my credit cards I pay off in full every month, and my car is at such a low interest rate that there's no point in paying it off, my major goal is saving and investing. Next goal, which kind of goes with the last goal, is to save less to save more. And you're probably going to hear that and think, Carter, literally what does that even mean? I am someone who chronically overshoots. I'm going to be super honest with you guys. I try and overshoot on my savings goals. And I think it's important to challenge yourself, but not to the point where you're just not saving anything. I was doing some reflecting as to why I found it really hard to be consistent with saving money. And I think it's because I overshoot on things. I will take like a big chunk of money. I'll take like $1,000 and I'll throw that into my savings and be like, wow, oh my God, that's awesome. I just saved $1,000. But I didn't take into account maybe any additional expenses I had that month. And I like kind of leave myself high and dry with everyday spending. And now I'm not a big everyday spender, you guys know, but I wasn't taking into account like everything else going on in my life. And then I'd end up pulling from that savings because I would need it to, I don't know, like, not like spend like crazy. That makes me sound like I have a big spending problem, but I just wasn't being mindful of how much I could actually save with my income. And so I was like saving these big amounts of money, but then I ended up just like pulling them out every few months. I feel like that is one of my biggest flaws, is that I like overshoot and I'm like overconfident with saving, that I'll just like throw a chunk of money in there. And then like if you throw $1,000 into your saving every month for 12 months, you should have $12,000 by the end of the year. But if you're pulling it out every month and you end the year with $6,000, then it's just better to save $500 every month, because 500 times 12 is 6,000. Do you know what I mean? And so that's actually my goal for this year. I set up a kind of like a more reasonable action plan to save, like I mentioned, a reasonable amount every single month. And at the end of each quarter, if I have extra in my business account, I can send myself like a one-time payout and put that into my savings. But I'm really hoping this helps me actually save more long term. And so the example is literally what I gave you. If I put $500 aside every month and have the extra $500 in my budget, I'm hoping that that actually helps me keep money in my savings instead of pulling it. Just being honest with you guys, I feel like I'm not the best with saving because I overshoot instead of just like doing a comfortable amount that I know will work with my budget. Okay, next goal is to average 10 to 12 no spend days every month. And honestly, since we moved, this has become a lot easier. Like I said, I'm not like a huge spender, but I will say even then, as someone who's not like a huge spender, I was spending so much more than I needed to when we lived in the suburbs because everything was so accessible to us. Now, granted, I'm not saying you should just move because you're spending too much, but I have noticed since moving and being so much further from things that I just didn't need to go out all the time. Like, while yes, it's nice to like get out of the house every day, I do that now. I just like walk up to the post office or walk up to the library. I was just like spending to spend because it's all that was near me. I just realized how much I was like spending randomly. And obviously, don't get me wrong, we're not perfect. I'm an impulsive spender. Like I'm always going to have those tendencies, and I'm probably for the rest of my life always going to randomly impulse spend on something. Like I'm not going to ever be 100% perfect. I already find myself spending a lot less day to day. And it's funny because I actually got a comment. I posted this on a reel, like a 2024 goals reel, and someone said like, how do you go about this? And for me, it's not like the strictness of like 10 to 12 no spend days a month. It's more of the mindset of, if I'm bored, I don't need to go out and shop. And so I'm setting this goal also with like kind of the mindset in mind. Obviously, if someone calls me and says, hey, do you want to go out for dinner? I'm not gonna be like, oh, sorry, it's one of my no spend days. But the goal of it is to just like not go out and spend money every day, and to keep like most days during the week like no spend days. And I'm not super strict on it either. Like I said, if my mom, I don't know, we go for coffee every Saturday, that's not like an example, but if someone calls and says, hey, let's have a girls' night on Thursday, I'm not gonna say no to it. But I just want to be more mindful of, and I think I've gotten a lot more mindful of like spending money, or like the days that I spend money. And so this to me is just like more of a reminder that if you're bored, you don't need to go out shopping. Not that I literally can, because the closest like town to us is 30 minutes away, but it's more of the mindset principle of not spending money every day. And 10 to 12 just seemed like a good number because it's about a third of the days in the month. All that to say, I would just like to average around 10 to 12 no spend days a month, and it's more of like a mindset thing to me than like being really specific on those amount of days. If one month I only have 9 no spend days, that's totally okay with me. One month I might have 14 or 15 no spend days. Okay, and then the last goal that I have is to utilize my sinking funds more. I feel like I'm good about this in certain situations, but overall I'm not really great about this, especially with travel. I've noticed because I use sinking funds in my life for certain things, and I notice how much easier it makes my life. So for example, with moving, having money put aside for like buying furniture and the moving costs and stuff, that made my life easier because I didn't have to incorporate that into my budget and stress about it. But then in other parts of my life, I don't do this anymore, and I want to get back on track with that. I've gotten into this habit of, which if it works for you, that's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it, but of working things into my budget instead of saving up for them. And for me, I just like I don't like this. Especially with travel, I've noticed I will like work travel into my budget instead of saving up for it and having a sinking fund, which I used to do. And it just worked a lot better for me, because then it's hard because I feel like a lot of my travel is business related now. But even then, like learning to save up in my business account for travel and put money aside every month, like that's not a bad thing to do. And because it's like all business related now, I've gotten to this habit of just like, you know, paying off the credit card after like whatever it is for business. And I want to get out of that mindset, because I found myself so less stressed about money when I was traveling, when I had saved up a certain amount for it. And that's not meaning that we're strict when we travel, because we obviously have a buffer, but I just want to be better about using sinking funds more. I think they're so valuable. I personally don't use sinking funds for anything small like subscriptions or car repairs. That like, I have an emergency fund, I guess, for big car repairs, but I don't use it for smaller things like that. But I totally think it's great if you do. It really just depends on the person. Home projects now, I'll be like, well, I didn't spend too much this month, so I'll just like work that into my budget. Where I want to be like, okay, we want to replace the countertops in the kitchen, for example, not do a full kitchen reno. I want to get the quote for that. I want to really think and reflect on what other things I want to do while I'm at it. So probably change the handles, paint the cabinets. And then I want to estimate that, and I want to save up for it, instead of randomly one day being like, okay, let's just do it, and then like dealing with the consequences after of having to make it fit into my budget, taking money out of savings and all that stuff. I think that also ties into my instant gratification of being impulsive with my spending too, is wanting it immediately and not having the like motivation to save up for it. And like, yes, you get instant gratification from making a purchase, but there's also something to be said about when you save up for a purchase and then you finally get to make it, and it's so much more meaningful to you. Those are my goals for 2024. I think I have less than I did last year, but I've started to realize that having more goals isn't always better, especially with finances. Like, I would rather pick 2 or 3 bigger goals to work towards than have like 5 or like having like 7 to 10 goals that I'm like spreading myself too thin for. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what one of your financial goals is for 2024. I would love to know, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!